Hi, I'm Tina Sarsoli. I attended the City of Tarpon Springs regular board meeting on February 11th. It was a regular board meeting that was very interesting to me. It started out with a citizen that they have citizens' comments in the beginning of the board meeting, and there was a citizen that came up to lambaste the board and threatened the city manager quite a bit, and to the point where the mayor warned him and warned him again and warned him a third time when he threatened the police chief and the police department for something personal that had happened. It made for an interesting climate in the beginning of the board meeting. And also there was an elderly woman. Every time there's a public comment, every time there's an issue when they go through the board meeting, you're allowed to ask for public comments. The mayor does, and the lady went up after every issue and had a discussion. I later asked my expert witness who she was, and she was an ex-mayor that had been in the city probably her whole life. But it was very interesting to watch the board and the reaction and how they handled it very diplomatically with her, because some of her comments were not very pleasant. The agenda and my main focus was on Ordinance 2020-05. It is an ad valorem tax exemption. This was the first reading of it. To translate that into layman's terms, it is a tax that's based on the assessed value of an item or a transaction. So an exemption would be actually the exemption to these taxes. The board themselves, who was seated, was Mayor Aloysius. There was Vice Mayor Townsend Tarpon, Rhea Siebert, who was not present, Jacob Kerr, and Connor Donovan, who are commissioners. Also, the city manager, Mark LaCouris, was there. The city attorney, Thomas Trask, was there. The police chief, who was Robert Kronik, and the city manager, who is Irene Jacobs. They were all seated in the board seats. It was a very nice atmosphere. Mayor Aloysius is very soft-spoken. He's a longtime resident of Tarpon Springs. He was previously on the Board of County Commissioners, and he was the vice mayor. He's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He is the founder and a board member of Plato Academy Center and School. He's the balance of the board, you could tell. He is very soft-spoken, but yet he is very on point with everything that's on that agenda. The Vice Mayor, Townsend Tarpini, he is a Tarpon native. He is a 7th generation Floridian. He grew up in Tarpon Springs. He has a civil degree of science in agricultural business and economics. He owns a local business, and he is dedicated to Tarpon Springs and preserving the historical value. He was also a member of the Historical Preservation Board for quite a while. He doesn't speak often. He just emphasizes his points. Every time there was something voted on or something discussed, they had to go through the whole board process to ask for approval. He would give his approval, but he would also apply additional comments that he might be concerned about. As I stated, Commissioner Siebert was not available, so I didn't get an impression of her. Commissioner Jacob Kerr is a lifelong resident of Tarpon Springs. He is right now a procurement healthcare manager who handles $650 million in a year's time, which is quite impressive. He does contract negotiations and savings. He gives a business sense, I think, to the Board of Trustees that is a definite added bonus when it comes to budgets or looking at things that involve finances, which is a huge part of a town budget, or running a town. He has a strong personality. He's very outspoken, especially anything that involves financials throughout with the Board of Trustees. Then there's Commissioner Connor Donovan. He is the newest member. He is a licensed real estate agent and works for a family business in Tarpon Springs. He actually graduated from our program that we're in. He spoke about Professor K. That was an interesting little tidbit that I wasn't aware of. He's practical, he is free-spirited, and he's 2020. He's on the internet, he's checking the town's position from all angles, and he's also my expert witness, so I'll speak a little bit more about him further down in the interview. As far as my four-step policy analysis, the issue is to implement this tax exemption in a way that all businesses can be integrated and create this excitement among all businesses, future businesses and current businesses in Tarpon Springs. Because future businesses can come there and start and give a big boost to the economy, and current businesses can expand, or there are other avenues that the town will offer to these business owners. The stakeholders are Mayor Aloysius, the Board of Commissioners, the Economic Development Committee, the the business owners in Tarpon Springs, the real estate development companies, and private citizens. As far as the perspectives of this, the mayor, he's very pro of this program. He believes it creates visibility for Tarpon Springs, and it creates an economic market within Pinellas County that makes Tarpon Springs strong. The Board of Commissioners all agree and voted for this to be approved. They want to talk about expediting the permitting process, the credits of the Pinellas County website and how Tarpon Springs is portrayed on there. And they want to talk about how to be able to let everyone take advantage of the offer that the city has done for improvements. But they also want to protect the integrity of the historical value of Tarpon Springs. This goes on to the private citizens. That is the major concern of private citizens, is Tarpon Springs wants to expand and infuse money into their town. However, they also have a small town feel. They're a large Greek community. They're very old in some aspects, and they want to keep that charm that Tarpon Springs has created for themselves. And they don't want a Starbucks or a Jamba Juice on every corner. That is not the intent of Tarpon Springs. So if we do tax breaks and create and bring big businesses here, is it going to destroy that fabric of the town? The Economic Development Committee is ran by Karen Lemons. She's the chair. She definitely wants to enhance Tarpon Springs' image within the Pinellas County framework and show what all Tarpon Springs has to offer. She works very hard and diligently with Pinellas County and state representatives and Tarpon Springs citizens and business owners to do this. The recommendation, the city has this ordinance in place. It was passed by all board members and voted on by the town at 63.7% in March of 2019. Now they're into the nitty-gritty. Now they need to formulate the parameters and make sure that the word of the ordinance is followed, that the people that buy into it and that all areas in the town understand, such as the planning commission, these people, everyone has to be on the same page so that these businesses can come in, take advantage of this tax break. And also, what are we going to do for the smaller businesses like Colossus and people that have been in the docks, but they can't expand there, but they've been there for years and years, hundreds of years. So they have to be able to protect that part of Tarpon as well. By joining this co-op and doing this with Pinellas County, Tarpon Springs is joining 39 countries and 25 cities that take advantage of this tax exemption break that's created around the state and is offered in Florida. So it's a big deal. As far as the proponent, everyone is for this. Like I said, 63.7% of the voters voted for it. It's relevant, and it can affect everybody in the community, Pinellas County, Tarpon Springs, and really grow Tarpon and infuse some real financial success there. The stakeholders, what are they seeking? The mayor, he wants to make sure that we're fair and consistent across the board for all businesses. The Board of Commissioners want to make sure that this is done in a timely process, that the Planning Commission's on board, that everybody understands about the permitting. If they're going to expedite it, then what are they going to offer to the other businesses that aren't going to expand? There has to be a balance, and that's what the commissioners are concerned about right now. The Economic Development Committee, they want to make sure in the bigger picture that Tarpon is represented as they should be in Pinellas County for all the good things that it has to offer, offering this break, but keeping their small town feel. The business owners, they want to know. They want to know if you bring in a business and you infuse $100,000 into their community, but they're on the corner and they run a small mom and pop. What do they get from that? So the business owners, that's their stake in it. They want to make sure that they're treated fairly as well and kept in the loop. The real estate development companies are thrilled. This is an opportunity to really spend some big money and develop some property around Tarpon Springs, still within city limits, that will help promote the economy, definitely. The private citizens, the main concern of most private citizens seems to be that historical value and the feel of what Tarpon Springs is about. The bayou, the diving of the cross, the Greek culture, the things that have made Tarpon what it's been for hundreds of years. They don't want to lose that. And there's concerns, even though they passed the ordinance, they're going to be at these meetings to make sure that Tarpon Springs does not become another municipality that loses its identity because of success and economy. The commissioner's response, the mayor, he says that the ordinance is great, but they need to look at the parameters and make sure all businesses are aware of this program. The vice mayor responded and approved and said that the factors need to make sure that it keeps Tarpon competitive, it gives them a competitive advantage, and that we also keep the big picture in mind. Commissioner Siebert wasn't available, so there was no comment. Jacob Kerr said that he thinks it's great for startups. He wants to know what they're going to do and have a cohesive plan for these small businesses that can't take advantage of this big tax break. So let's do some things for our smaller businesses and see how that works. Commissioner Donovan wants to make sure to look at the locations, to make sure that it's properly advertised, and has concerned about special treatments for licensing. Once again, I think all the commission and the mayor agree, and the citizens, they want it to be fair. They want to do this because it'll be great for the economy and great for Tarpon Springs and for growth, but they also want to make sure that there's a balance, and that was the main crux of this meeting that I got. The results, I think, the ordinance has been passed, so it's in place. Now it's the workings of it. It's working with Pinellas County and the state and the economic development and Pinellas County mapping and the commissioners and the planners to make sure, and the new businesses. Let's get out there with the Economic Development Committee. Let Karen Lemons do her thing and promote the business and promote what you can do in Tarpon Springs, because a lot of people do see it as a small, quiet Greek community that maybe they don't see that there could be that potential to put an Amazon or a Google or a really major company into Tarpon Springs area and still maintain the balance of that small time feel. The next meeting, all the parameters will be worked out. Any little bugs or any suggestions that they have will be discussed. As far as my expert witness, I met with Commissioner Donovan. I found him to be fascinating. I went up and introduced myself and asked for a meeting. He met me at Starbucks the following Monday to discuss it, and we talked about how he felt about Tarpon Springs and being a commissioner. And it was interesting because he told me the story that when he was in the program and he was doing this and trying to get his expert witness and get his information for his case analysis, he couldn't get anyone to talk to him. He said they were so rude, he wouldn't mention what municipality or whatever, but he said it was horrible. And he went to Professor K and stated that he didn't know what to do, and Professor K stated to him, run for office. And Connor Donovan said, run for office? I wouldn't even know how to do that. So he worked within the system with his professor, and he loves Tarpon Springs. He works for his family business there as a real estate agent. And by doing that, he was allowed to run. He ran, and he won this seat. And he's really working hard now. He's very diligent. He's on top of things. He's 2020. He visited the Pinellas County Development website that I found this fascinating, the economic site. The errors that were listed about Tarpon Springs. It had that there were 0 fishing industry jobs in Tarpon Springs, when Tarpon Springs is the largest influx of marine commerce comes through Tarpon Springs. So he's working with those people to correct the errors on the website. He's talking about how to quicken this process for the advantages of the program, for the permitting and those kind of things. Then I asked him, I said, let's talk about these parameters. He explained to me that there's 10 years of exemption, that there's a capital investment of $100,000 minimum, and that the state requires that when you do these contracts, that there's a date of adoption that shows when a business began and infused the money, and they have 10 years for this tax break. That's a hefty, hefty tax break. And then I said, so what happens to halas and places in the docks that have been there forever that can't expand? And he assured me and talked to me about how that every year the city of Tarpon Springs has grants and matching grants that will help. If you have code problems, they step up to the plate and say, you put this in and we'll match you. They send their planners out to work with people that might need a handicap access, or there's a sidewalk that there's been some problems with people getting hurt. And he personally has suggested things like eliminating the small businesses business license, which is only $200, $500 a year per business. But think about that over the course, if you have a business for 25 years in Tarpon. It's those kind of things that he wants to do for the smaller businesses, to know and make them understand that they're not left out in the cold with this, that they care about them as well. I ask, because I'm familiar with Tarpon Springs. My daughter graduated from Tarpon High. My grandson went from pre-K all the way through high school. He's Greek Orthodox. He dove for the cross. I'm invested in Tarpon Springs as a community, even though I don't live there currently. And I asked him, where in Tarpon Springs would these businesses be able to be? Because I'm pretty familiar with Tarpon. He explained that north of Anclote Boulevard, there's some area there, there's some industrial area, there's some buildings that haven't been used or were never used, and that is a prime spot. And that he's going to push and make sure that type of information gets listed on the Pinellas County website, so when real estate developers and people go in to look at what they're looking into, they'll see that Tarpon Springs is part of this economic development, and that Tarpon Springs is a place they can come and infuse this money and grow their business in a great community at that, because it truly is a great community. He talked about the grants and the matching grants that the town offers, the city offers. And I think that's great, because he wants to work with businesses to teach them who's their customers. Teach them that with the economic development, if you're located on Safford Street, what around you, where are your customer base, so people can have a better understanding of who they're serving and ways they can serve them. It was a great interview. It really was. We talked a lot about the local businesses and about Tarpon Springs, that Tarpon Springs was the first incorporated city in Pinellas County. And we talked about the historical preservation. I worked in Colorado and interviewed people in Colorado in larger towns that have been smaller towns that talked about losing their historical buildings and them growing so fast. Tarpon doesn't want to be another Palm Harbor, Safety Harbor that explodes, Oldsmar, and then all of a sudden they lose that feel. That's critical for Tarpon Springs. And he feels with the balance of the board and with the balance of the people that are on the board and the commitment that the people have to Tarpon Springs, it's pretty phenomenal, actually. And to see that kind of expertise mixed with that kind of loyalty to the actual town. He wants to do this simple business survey every year to talk to the business owners and say, what can we do for you? I think that is an amazing idea that will go far in a town like Tarpon Springs. His nugget, I really enjoyed this. He said the best part of American government is that it truly belongs to us. And that if you want to do something, you be the change. I found that so refreshing to think that it is up to us, and it is our government, and we are the people. When it says we the people, we are those people. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great project, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.